Well, I saw Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Or perhaps it should be titled Aquaman and the Last DCEU film, which it most certainly is. Right off the bat, I liked it. I didn't think it was that bad. It's got problems. And I, just watched Rebel Moon, and Aquaman was way better than that. And one of the things that Aquaman had that Rebel Moon didn't was that it had engaging characters that were had something about them that was interesting. And the main thing was, and this was revealed from reports about screen tests, that the best part of the film was the back and forth between the two brothers of Arthur Curry and Orm, the Patrick Wilson character from the previous film. And that's true. That does work out. The interesting thing also here is I can't help but notice that Patrick Wilson actually looks like Aquaman, the classic Aquaman. And in a lot of ways, this would have worked out as a better movie if he was Aquaman and Jason Momoa was Lobo, and they somehow got paired together for some reason. You would get pretty much the same thing. Because Momoa is this, wild partying guy that just wants to relax with a beer and all that type of stuff. And this is showcased here, even though now he's somewhat settled down. He and Mara have gotten married, and they have a young child. And Arthur's father is the main babysitter with the kid. And so they give you some details there. And what's been going on with Aquaman. Of course, he's married to Mara, played by Amber Heard. So, most likely, she had more scenes in it originally. Her appearances are very limited, but it's like impossible for her not to be. And in fact, she's so limited in it, it's kind of odd that she's not there. Especially when later in the movie their child gets abducted by the villain Black Manta. And so, of course, she's going to be involved. And they have her there, but she would really be a part of the rescue team, I don't think you could keep her back from that. But obviously, due to all the problems, they didn't want her in there too much. And probably, if they could have, they would have recast her. But the same problem with the Flash film not really being finished is it's too much trouble and money to reshoot that, and they just didn't want to do that. And so they put them out. Let's get through this. Now it's done. And then a year later, they'll have a new Superman, or a little over a year, I guess, in 2025. So, what are you going to do? It is what it is. And I figured it would be so butchered, but my guess is the Flash got butchered more because it was more of a, shared universe film than Aquaman was, in the sense that the Flash was resetting things, and they had 3 different versions they had to do because they were changing the direction and all that, and you ended up with what you got. Similar here, this looks like a more finished film, although there are some wonky CGI here and there. For the most part, the CGI works much better in this one than it did in The Flash. But still, there's these scenes of Nicole Kidman's character, Aquaman's mother, and some action sequences. And that even, I'd seen in the trailer some of her scenes. And I thought, ooh, that looks pretty bad. But usually when you see those, you think they've improved it by the time it gets in the theater. Well, such was not the case, because again, they probably, look, this is it, time's up. And so it's as is. But for the most part, and I'm very forgiving for CGI. Other people, it's enough to push them out of the film and whatnot. But in my case, not so much. It has to really be gallingly bad. And I can't say that was the case. But the basic plot of Black Manta wanting revenge ties in nicely with the story set up by the first film. And it makes perfect sense that he would be the main villain, and he wants revenge for the death of his father and all that, and he lashes out at Aquaman, and so on and so forth. And then, well, it ties in and makes sense that Orm had been a previous ally. He had hired Black Manta in the previous film. So Aquaman's got to go bust him out of his prison, and there's that whole thing. Stuff like that, because he needs his guidance on how to take this guy on. And then the two brothers are coming together. And then, lo and behold, there's an ancient evil force that Black Manta has unleashed, which was spawned out of two brothers at odds and all that sort of thing. So it actually has a nice tied up plot here, more so than I can say other efforts. So I was like, oh, okay. And then for what it is, it worked okay. It wasn't so butchered to the point that nothing made sense and all that sort of stuff. That wasn't the case. So whatever Bruce Wayne's involvement was, if that was just a post-credit scene that was supposed to have happened originally with Michael Keaton, and then they shot it with Ben Affleck, and then they scrapped that too. Who knows? But since the DCEU entity is no more, this is just an Aquaman movie, and that's that. So, and there's some tacked on scenes at the end that looks like, yeah, they quickly green shot that. It's kind of a little too silly, really. But as far as the preaching about climate change, yes, that's in there. It was turning people off and that sort of thing. But the odd thing about it, within the nature of the plot, it really kind of backfires, because it's all Black Manta's fault. He becomes possessed by this ancient evil, and this ancient fuel source that the Atlanteans had, and they had given it up because it was destroying the planet, so they had to stop it, and that caused a rift between their respective kingdoms and whatnot. And now Black Manta, possessed by this ancient king, was using it and causing massive heating and whatnot, to prepare the way for the return of this evil king and whatnot. So that's what it was. It wasn't the usual thing of like, oh no, climate change has done this. I guess the only insinuation is that it was easier to get to the old tomb of this king because of the glaciers collapsing into the ocean, and that was that. But I mean, the guy was actively looking for this. He was going to get it one way or the other, and all that. And then you have the Atlanteans, the bureaucracy of Atlantis that's stopping Aquaman at every point, even though he's the king, and blaming everything on the surface world and all that. They trash our oceans and everything. But ultimately, this threat was their fault. At least their forefathers had developed this source, and all they ever did to stop it was to just bury it around the world and the ocean floor, which Black Manta found. The one last remaining source was within the confines of Atlantis itself, and then they're finally aware of what he's doing, but it's like, geez, he didn't really protect this dangerous stuff very well. And so it's not humanity's fault. I mean, they're human too, albeit I guess mutated or what have you. But nevertheless, it's not that great if you're trying to push for a leftist climate change message. It doesn't work because that's not how that goes, and it's Black Manta and the ancient demon's fault or whatever, So. In the end, I was like, well, I'm fine with that. So, as for the rest of it, it's this adventure. The steps through the adventures make sense. It's to get here, get there. And it plays out. And it's only until they realize that when they begin to understand what Black Manta is up to and what he's doing, and that's only because Orm becomes briefly possessed by the entity as well, and then eventually more so. But I won't spoil everything. Kind of are dead, but but that's how they realize. Oh no, he needs the royal bloodline in order to break the spell that imprisons the ancient evil, and then that was leaked earlier on. And of course, this ends up involving Arthur's son. And so there you go. There it is. Had heard all kind of rumors about it takes a dark turn. That really didn't happen. The threat was there, but and I thought Aquaman's father would be the one most likely to not survive this, but spoiler, he did. So all around, it's a pretty happy ending, and the good guys win and all that. So it's bombing. It's probably going to continue to bomb, and it's got the shadow over it that this is it. There's no more DCEU. These are dead-end films. And the whole thing of pushing a shared universe when you basically declare it's dead really takes the air out of the cells. And it's unfortunate because it's not that bad. It's not great. It's got some stumbles here and there, but rather minuscule compared to some other projects that were just awful. So but that's just the way it is. It's the way it's been going. Even the second Shazam film, it didn't bother me that much. It wasn't as good as the first one. It had some, in fact, Aquaman's better than that one, but man, it just flatlined almost immediately. The Flash, well, good God, there's so much going against it before it even gets out the gate. What are you going to do? Blue Beetle, most people didn't know who that was and that kind of thing. But it's a basic superhero story, and for the most part, with a few things I didn't care for, but for the most part, it was an all right film. But it is a DCEU film, so I guess that was the main thing. Once you pull that out of the equation, the interest in these films evaporated. So as individual films unto themselves, it just wasn't seen that way, I guess. And so that's it for Aquaman. Maybe it'll have a second life afterwards, but I doubt it, because now they're getting ready to try to restart a new DC shared universe and try that, depending on what entity Warner Brothers will be by then. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I got to think that these results are going to weigh in pretty heavily on decisions on that. And so it's still at a position that I've been saying for quite a while, that they have a Mount Everest hill to climb in order to restart a DC shared universe. And of course they have no control over what Marvel's doing, which is destroying the whole idea of superhero films, because they're doing so badly with theirs. But there's nothing they can do about that. So that's the position they're in, and so the Superman film that James Gunn's doing has to be absolutely spectacular. It can't just be good, because in a lot of ways Aquaman here is kind of good. It's not that bad. It's a fun movie, Superman can't be that. Superman Legacy is going to have to be excellent, and that's a hard thing to achieve. And of course, it's difficult to gauge what does the audience actually want, and for some it'll work, for others it won't. Will it be enough of those who like it than those that not, so you can succeed? Well, time will tell. But anyway, that's it for Aquaman. It should have swam, but unfortunately it's going to sink. Yes, there was a floater in there. Sorry, can't help it. But all in all, I enjoyed the film. What can you say?